Today, let's talk a little bit about watch your step and some of the potential brokenness of it. So, when Watch Your Step came out in Reflections 2, long time ago, a lot of people did not initially kind of understand that. We'll go into more later. One of the biggest things about it is that if you look at its text, it lets you get Kessel system very quickly. Basically just by pulling the objective. You start with the Cantina, you start with Tatooine, and you start with Docking Bay 94. So you start with, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 force. So good activation at the beginning. You're able to pull basically the best system for light side because you can get a drain of 3 for Kessel. And it kind of gives you the ability, because you're canceling, opponent's game text, meaning that their ability to prevent Kessel runs is canceled. And then when you flip, basically you're limiting your opponent's force generation, which is not great. You're adding to your force generation, and you have two more smugglers of battle. They have extra destiny. They're forfeit extra. You can play an interrupt from Lost Pile once per turn, so basically extra cards, and then Sense Alter don't work. So a lot of the cards you might want to use, and the counters are for, you can't use Sensor Alter. So, for instance, if someone's using Hyper Escape, Dark Side cannot use Sense, for example, with their version of Sense. They would have to kind of, use Rebels, can't escape us, or the combo card, an individual card, or whatever. There's certain cards which there are no counters for. So, for instance, like there's Fallen Portal, right? There is no card for Dark Side at the time of Reflections 2, or until much later that actually directly counters this. So, the natural way, to counter a lot of these kind of, abusive potentially cards is Sensor Alter. But, apparently they didn't want people being able to alter Kessel runs, so you can't do that. You can't use Sense to cancel stuff. And so you have the opportunity of, because you can play from the Lost Pile, you play a lot of extra things. And so if you kind of compare to what was there in the past, right? If you think about in the past, you'd kind of have to have like tunnel vision, and you'd have to have tunnel vision to try to get Kessel, or you'd have to kind of get hidden base, and hidden base, could deploy Kessel from reserve deck, but you'd have to have at least 5 cards, and then you'd have to flip, and then you would be, in danger from security precautions, once you flipped. So being able to get Kessel easily, consistently, quickly was not guaranteed, but this objective kind of lets you get it and, a secondary system. So Force Drain of 1 is not necessarily great by itself, but you can hyper escape, you can move between the two systems if one gets too hot. So it makes it very difficult for the dark side to counter you, naturally, in other words. So there was kind of Reflections 2 tournament, fun a few years ago. There were 6 people. So Skilton was the winner, but you had Jared Napolitano, Caruli, Plunkett, Kevin Elia, and I think it was Jeffrey Johns, I believe. And they had, there's not like a ton of smugglers you can use. So, there are the mains, right? They added, a few smugglers there. They added like, Dash is a new one. They added Talon Card as a new one. They added Mirex as a new one. And, we had, kind of a generic smuggler back from, special edition. And if you kind of look the other ones, you did kind of have the Palace Raider from Jabba's Palace sealed deck previously. But most of these, play fairly similarly. You'll see a lot of similar cards. You'll see kind of Lost in the Wilderness. You'll see I'll Take the Leader. You'll see some of the combo cards here. So if you want to deploy, if you're ready to deploy your smugglers and draw 50 million Battle Destiny, you can. And you'll see a lot of control and tunnel visions, which both helps you get the card that you want from your force pile and cancel a card. And so what often is these pull double duties. If this deck had 3 of these cards, they could end up canceling, 3 force drains normally from hand, and then 3 more, from the lost pile, and just put it out of play. And then you can make it really difficult for your opponent. Dodge can be used to get out of the way, and end a battle basically. So if you want to kind of, let's say, deploy kind of a freighter captain quickly to the cantina, you can if you have a dodge in hand. if you have two smugglers out, your objectives flip. They can't, sense that. So you need like a special card to cancel reacts. So it can be very frustrating. So this is kind of one of the standard versions that, kind of people play or tweak from. I'll take the leader makes it harder for your ships to, suffer, automatically having to forfeit from attrition. And, they have kind of an extra docking bay here, both as extra place to drain, but of course, I'll take the leader also makes it so that if you're at that area, you can kind of force drain a little bit more, and having kind of a nice package of smugglers in order so you can have two of them in order to kind of take advantage of the extra battle destiny. There's a couple other variants, for instance, this one, you have R2 and 3PO. The advantage of this one is that basically because they can pull, once per turn, make a card bad feeling from hand into reserve deck. That's cool. Why is that cool? Well, because this card says you can use the destiny from droid battles, which is not great with the 3. It's better with kind of the original ones. But, if R2, D2, and 3 people are in battle together, opponent draws no battle destiny. So imagine, deploying this, grabbing this card here, you battle your opponent, then you're adding, extra battle destiny from having all your smugglers there, and then you kind of just cancel their battle destiny once, and then a future turn you cancel it again. So it's just kind of more kind of insult to injury potential here. This particular deck I got a bad feeling about this, because I'm assuming that if you get Han, you can do triple damage. So if you're getting lots of extra battle destiny, if you're kind of stacking your destinies and are getting lucky, you can really kind of overpower your opponent. So this is kind of what it's trying to do. This deck also starts with, a Tatooine exterior site by default, so you can get Beggar. So as opposed to like having to run, 90 Docking Bay 94 and find it or deploy it, this kind of deck starts it automatically. So just a lot of ways that we saw people roughly doing the same idea. You'll see various versions. The Palace Radar, I think, is particularly effective because you drive a transport vehicle, and the kind of the best version is to put into a patrol craft because it's enclosed, which means that Darth Vader and Saber or Forlom or IG-88 with riot gun and people that want to like shoot your guys or trample your guys, they can't do it if they're inside there. And of course, it adds the battle destiny. So you could have 2 Palace Raiders inside 1 patrol craft, and you would draw 3 battle destiny because of that. So it just gets really hairy. And of course, these would be 5 forfeit because of the objective being flipped. So it can be very annoying, very tough to deal with. There's a few, different ways, people have tried to play this deck, but a lot of it, honestly, is just a lot of the same stuff because there's not that many different smugglers that you can play with, especially at this time here. So you kind of had like 6 players in the top 8, of that tournament. We're using Watch Your Step, and for obvious reasons. And let's move on to kind of what it looked like. So I mentioned kind of earlier, Hayes wrote an article kind of 24 years ago, kind of shortly after kind of it came up. He had kind of his own idea. He didn't think, it was that strong of a deck at the time. And frankly, if you kind of look at his build, well, I guess I can understand why you would think that. So in his build, he was trying to, basically take advantage of Nightfall, put on Tatooine, be able to deploy Bausch, who would otherwise be deployed +6 because of the objective, because she's not a smuggler, deploy that for free, and then being able to kind of deploy Tantil Screech, for free as well. And so basically kind of lock up, the 2, battleground sites for free, and then you can kind of have free reign of your systems and then just kind of drain a lot of them. And it's kind of why I had kind of 4 Kessel runs here. It kind of makes sense. But interestingly enough, of course, you'll see cards like, Local Defense, which actually is actually not a bad idea, to kind of grab a ship before you kind of have the combo card, All Wings report in from later on you had in kind of Coruscant. So this is kind of a better card to use when that comes out, but at the time, it's not a terrible card here. But, later on when I was kind of playing Reflections 2 a few years ago, I was trying to kind of say, well, what can I do as a deck to, really do well? And a lot of these cards had like, copies of Luke, so I would try to run Abyss, and I was just trying to have a lot of, ability to retrieve with my ties, and I was trying to do Star Destroyers, and I built this deck a while ago to try to see if I could challenge, kind of watch your step. And believe it or not, I faced Hayes in a couple of matches a few years ago. So this is kind of the deck that I know he is for sure. Realistically, I'm 99% sure it's actually just a copy of Steve Skilton's deck. So kind of look at that. It's just, every card is 1-for-1, minus the ones we don't know. So let's take a look quickly at how kind of game one kind of went. I'll kind of try to go through this quickly here. So starting deployment, Hayes is careful about numbers, so good for him for playing that for default. Who knows what I'll play? And I'm just trying to get out my systems. I'm trying to, get all my stuff out so I can have 50 million Destiny deploy. And of course, what's the first thing he does? Like, I deploy my systems, I deploy him here, I'm setting up, and what does he immediately do? He deploys a cheap Relative Freighter Captain at the Cantina. He deploys to my own Sullust, so I guess he didn't want to or didn't have or whatever, didn't want to, give extra force to me. Why do that? So he deployed to here, and he's going to drain me for 2 and 2 off the bat. Most likely he has a Rebel Barrier and or a Dodge, and so my ability to slow him down is great. So this is the example of kind of fast deploy, fast drain, which your dark side deck has to be prepared for. And if it's not, you're going to suffer, kind of like I did in this game here. So he's going to drain me. I don't have great things. That's 4 force. Ouch. He's deploying, to the docking bay, and he's taking advantage of the freighter deploying -2. Well, guess what that means? That means this effectively deploys for free, and he's just deploying for his 2 pilots here. He has 2 pilots here, so now my ties deploy for extra, and this is a big ouch, right? I have executor. Okay, fine. I can move. I can try to disrupt, but I'm still taking 4 damage. Now he's deploying there. I am just outmatched very quickly, and yeah, this is not pretty for me in the least. So yeah, draining a lot and canceling my drains. So he just used kind of control and tunnel vision. So my ability to kind of catch up is severely impacted, right? So if you remember the deck he probably has 3 of these. So this is going to be extremely difficult for me to compete with. Okay, so yeah, now he has, I'll take the leader. Now he does Unita. He got his stuff back. He can fight me. I moved. Ouch. Ouch, 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 ouch. Yep, so he did it again. Placed out of play. Yep. Okay, so Arika, I'm trying to, stem the damage as much as possible. And he was about to play on the edge. He tracked his Luke, because you can track the Luke if you're using Mirax. Rolled a 6. So everything I did to him, right? All the little things in between him canceling to my 4 strains, he's just getting 5 force back. So it's extremely demoralizing. So we actually did play another game here, and I am going to try to beat him again. So maybe that was a fluke. Maybe I just got unlucky, whatever. I didn't get my CNR Fleet systems, whatever. But okay, first turn. Okay, wow. Okay, gets 2 freighter captains. He has 1 force. He probably has Rebel Barrier or Dodge. Wonderful. So already I'm going to lose. We'll lose some quick force here. I'm not deploying my guys to fight because I want to not have them die instantly, right? So if I deploy them to fight here, his other 7 cards could easily be another smuggler. I could lose everything. Like, I'm trying to get the zeros on my deck, so it's hard to commit to fighting. I'll take the leader already, so now he's force drain 2, 2, and then 1 more for 5. Trying to battle, trying to do stuff, and a great thing you can do is you can kind of use heading for the medical frigate. So sometimes you do that 1 card just to get enough to cause him to forfeit. He did that just so it takes a little bit less damage, but it's still not enough. So now he's doubling up. Now I didn't draw high enough. I'm losing lots of force, and he can just run away, and that's fine. And he put battle, right? So he put battle plan there. So my ability to kind of fight back on both terms. So I need to kind of move to a docking bait to try to not have to pay for my force, to try to catch back up as much as I can. But the force drains are too much. He has a Luke, and this is going to kill my guys really quickly. Yep. Yep, yep, yep. And that's going to be it. He hits him. Force drain for 0. I'm taking way too much force loss from a random battle. And this is pretty much hopeless for me, and I conceded at that point there. So, taking inspiration from, it's kind of Steve Skilton's deck, and actually later from Brad Kipple's deck he did in 2024, I kind of made my own version where I was trying to say, okay, well, let me try this. Can we, kind of modify this deck a little bit? Can we be not still have space, but kind of be a little more focused on ground? I also got beat by Worm Time, which I'll show kind of a future battle there, which made me realize that maybe it might be nice to have a little more docking bays. So anyway, I tried my own hand at this. I played some opponents recently, and let's take a look how these matches went. So I am gonna play Watch Your Step. He plays Battle Order quickly, so good for him. He'll slow me down a little bit, and I am just going to try to take advantage of staging areas quickly, and I am going to try to just generate lots of force to kind of get him there. So I'm going to harass him with Gunite, make it hard for him to deploy my Luke, get to battleground site, and he's deploying his stuff for kind of a space-themed deck. It's fine. And I didn't think he had two, always think their stomachs. That's fine though. I can deploy my guys there, and I can just, take my time because his deck is also kind of slow here. So yeah, I'll drain. Spend a couple turns trying to find folks here. And I use my barrier, that's fine. It's not gonna take me down, so I'm still draining. Find Luke, that's nice. Deploy extra guys, deploy order to engage. And I am trying to, go higher on the damage for him, much as possible. So out of commission one is people tracking that number. Kunite. So now that I know that he has, I know that he has a second one because I saw his deck earlier. I know he has a second, always think of their stomach. Having a ship here, prevents it. Turn me, I have control of tunnel vision. So I can, cancel some of these drains. I can stem the damage. It could be worse. So this deck was designed to be annoying, even if it's not the most optimal. And we'll see how that goes. So he's desperately trying to battle me. And he left Tarkin alive. Okay. There is a danger to that. Yep, and I'm playing Velocipile, and I can start a battle. And I'm doing some, overflow damage, which is what I'm trying to do. In this particular version, a lot of these versions don't use bargain table. This one I experiment with. I can cancel drains from this. I can cancel drains here. So my ability to really frustrate the opponent is high here. And I'm electing not to go to space just because I'm like, I think I can win on the ground and not have to worry about it. Okay, yeah, he's doing some more damage. He's getting kind of his Shirano going. I think this was a mistake. I think his ability to kind of get 12 is not going to be there after I drain for a little bit here. So track the destiny, getting 4 force back. So now I put this Shuffle Desperate Reach on top of my use pile. So I know the top card here is a Desperate Reach. I have another on the edge of my hand, so I know as soon as his turn starts, I can do another on the edge again. And so I do that, so I'll get that on the edge back. And I have another kind of follow the legend later to kind of use that and then use the kind of the on the edge that's in my lost pile here. So yeah, I know it's 4 from the bottom. I use follow the legend. I'm going to put out a play that on the edge of my lost pile, and I'm going to retrieve as much as I can and just continue to force drain and make it hard for him to get too many drains out. So he could have drained me this turn. I grabbed another, another Palace Raider kind of with my effect now Shadow Wind Chime, so I'm able to cancel one of, kind of the only drain he would have had left that turn, but he's going to elect to draw out, and that's there. So not an optimal deck, but it's still just super annoying, super hard to deal with. So played another game, kind of against another type here. Let's see what I do here. So this is against kind of a court deck. It's a very quick, influence. I deploy there. I'm trying not to lose damage here. And yeah, I was able to cancel drain. So he probably should have tried to fight me, but I could have had a dodge or whatever, so I understand. So he's trying to drain for 2 there. And I'm just, controlling, 2 sites, getting to 2 sites. I'm putting Melas in here because, I saw his deck earlier, so he might try to shoot him, capture him, whatever. So I'm trying to do a little protection. Won't protect against, Dengar with his gun, but it's better than nothing. And so yeah, could be worse, could be worse. He's trying to move to fight me. But I'm using control tunnel vision to get the cards I want. But I don't really have to fight him. So I'm putting out Beggar there. Beggar is extremely powerful. Make it so that I can attack him when I'm ready. And yeah, I'm just moving out of the way, And then I can Out of the Wilderness him. I can make his guy go away. And he finds the next turn, but I have Out of the Wilderness, Lost in the Wilderness here. So, his ability to continually drain me is not great. So I can deploy Luke there. I can harass his Ponda Baba. He has to draw high enough. He doesn't, and so then that guy goes. So yeah, Lost Wilderness again. Put that Willow out of there again. This time they couldn't find him. Mara Jade, bury her. Well, now she can't fight me. And he elected not to fight me. Maybe should have. I don't know. But yeah, he loses some force to out of order to engage here. So deploy Luke, deploy there, and because of his ability with Luke, because she's a smuggler, he's a smuggler, 3 Battle Destiny. This is not great for him. So he's deploying this here because he thinks maybe I have a second one, doesn't want to battle me here. I understand. Yes, I cannot Lost in Wilderness there anymore if you have a ship. I get it. I can also just leave you alone. So now I'm retrieving kind of with the Luke we draw earlier, tracking that destiny. I've still, you have a few cards out of play, but not a ton of cards in my lost pile. So now I finally get the Kessel I should have gotten turn 1 by mistake, which I didn't grab it. And this is just annoying for my opponent. What else can you say here? Yeah, and that particular game was a great example because in that game I drew it could be worse, and then Boba Fett, he was kind of immune to kind of less than 5. Well, Fragate makes it plus 1, and so that gave me the 5. So that last card by pile made a big difference there. So again, this is just this is kind of a foregone conclusion at this point. He doesn't have enough cards in his hand. I'm draining too much too quickly, and I can cancel drains. It's kind of over now. Even if he battles retrieves a little bit, it's not that great. And I don't have to battle him everywhere, right? I can choose to battle. I can choose to fight here. I can choose to fight here. I have options. And so here, right, I'm adding, my Palace Raider here to make Outrider larger, which makes Dash reduce the battle of it, so it's a 0 power, and it's not great. And there's 16 damage and ouch. All right. So, yeah, one more game here. Refresh this one here. All right, so kind of a last game, fighting against Pipe. They're trying to do kind of the quintessential, stuff here. He also gets a very quick scum and villainy, but I'm also kind of trying to get, deploying here. He's trying to fight me quickly, trying to get rid of my guy, but I dodge, and I can just drain and I can do my stuff. And I opted to deploy there for a little bit more force. So he kind of tricked me, going to try to fight Mirax here. I'm just going to opt to lose the force. I want to keep my ship here. I'm not super afraid. So again, I'm going to have two guys. And just eliminate. And he has 3 cards in hand, but I'm able to drain and I'm able to cancel, and it's just he needs more. So he gets me there, but his Battle Destiny is not sufficient. So he moves away. I continue to drain, and I got rid of Johto Cast. I got rid of Mighty Java. So his ability to kind of harass me is not as high. He could have, deployed, I think, Bosk again. I just think he retrieved him, but he knows that I probably have other ships and I can get to ability 7 here if he moved his Zuckuss and Mistender. So would have been a little bit too much for him. So obviously I'm not the best player in the world when it comes to watch your step and things. There was a couple of games, Classic Novi, where Wormtime generously donated some of his replays. I saw these live as well. So Wormtime tried making a deck which is kind of anti-watch your step. Kind of a lot of abilities. You have Gravity Shot to prevent them from moving. Kind of have Talon Roll here to kind of instantly kill them. Cancels Hyper Escape, or if a pilot is eliminated, has a sniper, so you can kind of snipe if you're looking at stuff. You can even snipe with proton bombs, which is very useful. So just a very, very kind of concentrated anti deck. Can be very mean, very powerful. 3 Vaders to try to clear sites as much as possible. So in a couple of 7s here that do extra damage for kind of taking advantage of these spaceship weapons. So, and he fought SWC player in these. SWC player used this deck. This deck is itself actually just a version of Brad Kipple's deck. So he made a couple changes. He added kind of Lost in Wilderness. He didn't use kind of Old Ben, and he added one more kind of control and tunnel vision. But for the most part, it's just a variant of what Brad Kipple played last year. So kind of let's see how they did in this first go here. So the first version, he actually did kind of a Bring Them Before Me variant, but otherwise very similar deck. And let's see how they're doing. So he's trying to replace the Tatooine. He has Captain Jonas here, and so he really wants to bomb these sites, right? Could kind of do that so he doesn't get the force, if possible. So he's getting ready to do that. Emperor's Power, that way he can draw an extra Battle Destiny. So he is aiming to do a very quick harassment, if at all possible. So that one he happened to fail. He's trying to add more things there to shore it up. And now he has his I'll Take the Leader. He has Lando. He has a couple locations, and so he's trying to do his thing. Drink again, and it failed. Got a little unlucky there. All right, so he does Fighter Cover to make the other Admiral Older go to use pile. And he's trying to do Meanda, and he's trying to, just shore up, because he wants to blow up Tatooine. He did his own control set for stun to cancel the high force drain here. SWC player is still just deploying and letting it be. So he's going to try to Sniper Dark Strike. collapses the cantina, gets another one, gets a 5, collapses the document 94. So this DC player has, 3 less force to use. And he's trying to really defend that one system. So now he's going to try to move over and stop the drain of 3. So now he's trying to increase his drains by moving palace right over there. And he controls multiple spots. So here and here and here, 3 docking base to try to shore up his items here. Hyperscape's away. He cancels the hyperscape. But here's the thing, right? It gets lost, right? He cancels it, but then immediately he plays it out of play, right? So he would have needed to have, 2 unsalvageables, right? For SWC player only have that 1 hyperscape. So it's just very, very frustrating to play against, and to kind of conclude a battle here. Force strain, more force straining, so he's getting down to 7. And he has two smugglers, and then Captain Han adds a Bell Destiny. And a few maneuvers. So yeah, he's gonna. So 5, so 12. Yeah, and so he's immune to, I don't actually recall why he's immune to attrition. But anyway, able to attack him, and now he's just spreading out, make his ties cost more. And here, Worm Time kind of shoots him blindly, and he kind of fails both attempts. So probably should have waited, probably should have tracked there. That was a mistake. But yeah, then kind of that game was over, that one mistake, and he still had three Battle Destiny there. So this other game they played, also a great example of just how frustrating it can be to play against Watch Your Step. So Worm Time's kind of go for a similar plan here. He's trying to get his activation, Emperor's Power out as much as possible, and trying to get ready to, fight. So I see players trying to just get ready to drain very quickly. So it's a drain of 3. Worm Time has to try to react. And Light Side has such an advantage in speed, generally speaking. Okay, so yeah, the SWC player move into attack position, making this immune to attrition. He kind of failed kind of the first shot, and trying to make it a lot of, yeah, so he opted just to take the damage here rather than lose the ship. So he's deploying Han for cheaper because it's a freighter there. Moving away just to drain. Satisfied battle order. Worm Time, has to use 3 force to drain. Barrier, no counter for that in hand. So using control tunnel vision to get what he wants. Deploying a radar patrol craft for extra activation. Well, not activate, not this time, just extra force draining. Moving Luke to drain more. Capturing Luke to prevent a force drain. Beggar to steal force. And deploying these guys. So Worm Time has a good tactic. So yeah, Saber 4 can react to this battle for free. You deploy for this, but the pilot deploys for free. So very useful. And yeah, that's kind of a defense that Worm Time uses. So he uses moving attack position from the lost pile. assuming that he won't get hit. But he's able to use cover fire and get a 7 there, and he is hit. So that maneuver fails, but Wormtongue gets a little unlucky and doesn't have that, loses the power battle. So he loses a few force and a couple ships there. SWC player cancels another drain here, so he's up to 4 cards that he's used to cancel. So yeah, the dark side has to take a ping every turn because they control Luke, and then SWC player is draining for 2. So he's taking 3 a turn. It can't last forever. So he uses blaster proficiency from the lost pile to try to hit Vader. And because he tracked from earlier, I'm guessing, is he's able to know he's going to hit. So even though he does "You are beaten" and that hurts, Vader will be gone. Wormtongue gets a little unlucky with his destiny here. Moving Luke, drain more next turn. He was on the edge of that destiny. He only used 4 force because he has to pay for this as opposed to 5. So you don't see that often, but it makes sense. One Vader, second Vader. Trying to stop as many force drains as possible. Yeah, he snipers Lando after tracking that destiny. Trying to deploy Dreadnought to move, so to try to make it the opponent can't automatically fight all the time. And SWC player is going to continue to draw. So 2 Palace Raiders means 2 Destiny, means Vader is going to be gone and probably with minimal damage, other than losing the 2 Palace Raiders. So no force loss other than the guys themselves, and Luke's free again. So tries to run away, cannot move because of Gravity Shadow. So Wormtongue move there, he's going to try to battle and try to eliminate that 1 card there. So 7, but guess what he does? So Pujix it out of nowhere, meaning that even though he's going to have 7 battle damage, he takes 0. And that's card number 6 from the lost pile there. There are nets moving there. I guess he wanted to move there, didn't want to fight, to overflow there. He's going to continue to drain at those 2 spots. And he's asking for a revert because the Palace Raiders move for free. There's a few maneuvers to track. Hyper escapes away. Using 4 force again, using the on the edge. Yep. Lost pile. Yep. And there it is. Yep, there it is right there. So SWC players moving to try to minimize the force drains using Fallen Portal to get a bad destiny, to get the bad destiny out of the way. And then now he can kind of draw the 3 destiny and kind of force Janice to kind of have to die. So we're getting very low in force here for both players. Force drain, yeah, puts that in lost pile. Cancel another drain. He put the Palace Raider here, but he has a card, dodge. So he's able to dodge away. So it's just lots of different ways to prevent force draining with all these cards here. All right, so it's going to drain a little bit more. I felt this move was probably a little suspect because he went from 1 card to 2 cards here, although granted speaking, it's force strain here, +2 for each of those. So he uses, it's a hit. So that is card number 10. He used dodge earlier, so this is going to be, actually, sorry, that's going to be card number 11. All right, 11 cards. Crazy. Absolutely nuts. It does a little Imperial Artillery to try to go down. The problem is, of course, he's going to be draining for 3 next turn if nothing happens. He only has 1 force to move. So he needs to move there. And he probably should have dropped this guy, although this means that, Han could have battled here. The issue is he's going to lose 1 force from take your father's place, and then he drains for 2, and then it's over. So, and just a note here, there was 1 more force in the lost pile for SWC player, so he could have actually had his 3rd control and tunnel vision to cancel 1 more force drain if he needed to, which frankly he would have there. So he had a tiny little bit of slack there as well. But no, just a great example of just how kind of abusive, getting extra cards from lost pile basically can be, and how just, demoralizing it can be for the opponent. And just to be clear here, right? Just for fairness sakes, I did play a game against Wormtime earlier. I tried to use my own kind of version, Watch Your Step, and that kind of deck archetype of kind of matching pilots here can work very well. I probably, I certainly didn't play as well as I could have. I'm not the most practiced at Watch Your Step against very strong decks, but for sure, it's very possible to do well with this deck. So I'm trying to drain him as much as I can. I'm trying to kind of harass my opponent, get free things. And maybe I should have waited, had 2 guys there. Maybe there's better things I could have done. But if you kind of notice what's going to go here, I kind of needed a Honor the Jedi here. I didn't have it, so I'm losing some extra force here. And he's going to show a cool technique here. Second here. Yeah, so he's trying to use Gravity Shadow, meaning I can't move. So I decided, I'll just leave him alone. He'll be fine by himself. All right, so he uses Sniper to snipe with his proton bombs. And he's going to... Actually, no, he's using Sniper for something else. He's using Sniper to kill my guys. Yeah, that's fine. And then he's going to do a regular force drain there. So this position is not great. I don't have enough ships. He can move. He can track and move around. He's only taking 1 ping a turn. Yep, and I didn't track my destiny. I got impatient, so I really need to kill this guy, and I didn't. So I decided to roll with it. I did have a Hujix out of nowhere here, but I probably should have, waited till I had the cards or tracked better, in all honesty. So that mistake cost me, for sure. So Tarkin's orders me, cancels my force drain. I deploy Vader. He tries to set for stun on me. Okay. And then, yeah, he's going to use Sniper Dark Strike, and then he's going to kill off my Lando. Yep. And that's a big ouch. So I try to hyperscape. He Tarkin ordered me to cancel that. Yep, and this is a big ouch for me. Yep. And this is the beginning of the end. This is pretty much it for me. I have lost too many ships, too many guys for me to be successful in this match. This is the one place that cannot be proton bombed. It could be worse a little bit to delay damage, but it's not enough. Yep, there we go. Dead finally. So, I mean, there are other decks you can use. There is my kind of scum with Abyssins, which can potentially be potent. It's somewhat of a one-trick pony. You generally need a lot of Abyssins. You need a lot of cards on the ground to kind of make the most of it. It's generally weak in space. So yeah, you might be able to start some battles with Bosk or Zuckuss, and maybe you can switch between these. But kind of the builds I've seen kind of would have trouble against Kessel for light side. And there is kind of the classic Dark Surgeon from Alex Tennant from several years ago. I'm told this works pretty well. A lot of the reason it works well is because it's very heavy in Force Denial. You don't have Bad Feeling Have I. Start with Coruscant, and you kind of only deploy Death Star Docking Bay 327 or kind of a Presence of Force if you need to. Alex's goal in his design was to give as little force to the opponent as possible, take care of mobilization points, take care of the objective, and the ability to kind of cycle cards back to your deck and track your destiny. That way you can kind of use control stuff for stun, and you can kind of control the battle and in many different ways. So that is also kind of perspective, but hopefully, whenever you're wondering why, Premiere-Reflections II modified, why, Watch Your Step is not there, you'll probably kind of have a better idea why there is that difference there between them. Just because, yes, it can be countered, but it's just extremely onerous and extremely difficult. So anyway, thank you. Have a great day.